Hello and welcome to Good Morning Thailand. I'm Jay and today we're going to be talking about COVID visas, the latest in the emergency decree, and Joe Ferrari, as well as a brief look into esports. Is it a real sport or not? That's coming up on Good Morning Thailand. Welcome everyone, you're watching Good Morning Thailand with me, Jay, and Tim.
And with my coffee cup. Good morning.
Right. Thank you to our sponsors, Coffee Culture, for providing us with the best coffee in Thailand. Doi Chang Peaberry today.
And we've got it percolating there in real time.
Right. And if you'd like to buy your coffee, you can go to coffeeculture.asia.
Okay. Plenty to talk about today.
Plenty to talk about. Tim, let's just get right into it. COVID visas.
Well, yeah, they've sort of been called COVID visas in the past and also COVID extensions. The situation happened when 18 months ago the borders closed in Thailand. A lot of people were unable to fly back home. Some tourists were sort of stuck here. Other people, for various reasons, were just unable to leave the country. So the government said, okay, we'll sort of provide an ongoing amnesty. And they've kept on updating that every couple of months. Now we've got a situation after that's been in operation for 18 months where the latest extension has now been moved to November the 26th, I think. Okay. We've got all the exact details of that story at thethaiger.com. It's just been announced in the past 24 hours. So it means that you'll be able to extend your visas, your short-term visas, for another 60 days up to November the 26th, which sort of takes you through till January sometime, I suppose. My gut feeling is that as they're sort of changing the emergency decree and removing that, and the narrative is trying to reopen Thailand, that this might be the last extension.
Right, probably, yes, because by the end of this, most probably the country will be looking for, if not a full reopen, quite a big majority of the country opening, and a lot of tourists will be coming in, so this will probably no longer last past that.
Well, last year, the immigration departments were saying if you want to stay in the country, you've got to get a letter from your embassy, but the embassies basically said, we don't want anything to do with this. So the immigration department has dropped that provision. But it's on a case-by-case basis, and different immigration officers around the country are sort of applying it a little bit differently, some obviously being a bit more harsh than others. So if you do need to get one of those extensions to your visa, no matter what your visa is, either get hold of a visa agent or a lawyer and try and get a more permanent visa if you want to stay here for longer, or go and get that extension sorted out and start checking your available flights and options to leave Thailand.
Right, and once again, keep being updated on thethaiger.com.
Of course.
Of course. Right, now in the ever so long-lasting emergency decree, we have new latest information. Tim, what's going on with the emergency decree?
Okay, so it looks like the Cabinet have said that they are going to introduce or upgrade the Disease Control Act.
Okay.
And part of that is the extending the value of the CCSA to a different body that would work under sort of parliamentary law under this new act. So it has been passed, but it's now got a process to be discussed in Parliament and then sort of get gazetted. So they're saying that even though the emergency decree will probably be revoked, that this new act will probably not be able to be introduced until the start of November. So, just a bit of a delay, and we might have that emergency decree hanging around a little bit longer. But really, what's going to happen is people say, oh, great, there's no more emergency decree. But the principles and the fact that this new Disease Control Act will still be able to impose curfews or restrictions if it sees fit. So I think the bottom line is that there's not going to be much change in the fact that there will still be the possibility of these lockdowns if this new body, whatever it's called, deems it necessary.
It seems like a lot has been going around in Thailand with, reopening plans being delayed, emergency decree, the CCSA. it seems like people have started to forget Joe Ferrari, or, certain news has been overshadowing Joe Ferrari. What's going on with Joe Ferrari?
How could we forget Joe Ferrari, whose real name is Titisan Utanapon, and he was the head of the he was the chief of police at Nakhon Sawan.
Yes.
And he was the one who was involved was caught on camera, as you know, the putting the plastic bags over the head of an alleged drug dealer who ended up suffocating. He's now in a lot of trouble, and he and 6 other officers are currently luxuriating themselves at the Klong Prem jail. That's the big jail up in Bangkok. And here's the latest, and this is directly from the Thaiger. Along with criminal charges for allegedly suffocating a suspect to death in an attempt to extort 2 million baht, the former police station chief in Nakhon Sawan, Titisan Utanapon, and 6 other police working at the same police station now face charges for committing disciplinary offences whilst on duty. So these are additional charges on top of the current charges that have been laid on them. So the investigation is still going on that, but it looks like additional charges, which are more disciplinary regarding his status as a policeman, have now been laid. So if people think he's going to be set free and this is all going to sort of go under the radar, I think the government are quite determined to make sure that he goes through a formal, proper trial. So I don't think this story is going to be swept under the carpet like the Red Bull Air case.
And rightly so, it shouldn't be. Right, so I guess those are the 3 updates for today. Can
I go now?
No, not yet. I still need you.
All right.
The people need you. Right. Today's main topic, Tim, is going to be regarding esports and whether it is a real sport or not. And the reason we took this topic actually is because a lot of you have a lot of comments and a lot of opinions about this regarding our Thailand news yesterday with the Jet. So we'll be back right after this break, and we're going to talk about esports. Is it a real sport or not in Thailand? Hello and welcome. You're watching Good Morning Thailand with me, Jay, and Tim.
Hi.
Tim, it's time to talk about esports, real sport or not. The Sports Authority of Thailand has now officially recognized esports, which stands for electronic sports, in short form, games online. It's now considered a sport, and it's now out officially in the Royal Gazette. What do you think about that?
Well, this is going to be interesting as we sort of move through this discussion. I think we're probably going to end up roughly where we start. There's no sort of strict definition. Now, when the idea of sports were, invented, even things like the Olympics. I mean, remember, they call it the Olympic Games, not the Olympic sports. So there are definitions. Do you have some definitions of sport?
I do, but before I actually get into that, have a look at this graphic so you know that this definition is right.
What's the definition? How do you spell definition?
DEFINITION.
Well done.
All right. So this is taken straight from Google. However, it also can be found on the Cambridge Dictionary.
So it seems to me that definition can be applied to anything that is sort of vaguely physical and involves competition.
Exactly. And under this definition, esports can be considered a sport.
Well, I would have thought so. I think what people see, though, is that they see sometimes maybe overweight young people sitting there just flicking their wrists on the game controllers.
Right.
And they say, how could that possibly be a sport?
Okay.
But then, is chess a sport or is chess a game? Is golf a sport or a game? Is darts, is that a sport or a game, or just something that you do in the pub because you're drunk?
Yeah, well, airsoft gun, I don't know. I mean, it could be anything, really.
So, I suppose, just to continue the sort of analogies, if you are playing paintball and running around, shooting people with the paintballs, or you can also do that on as a game. So is one a game and the other a sport? purely because you're sort of using your limbs and it's more physical? Or, I don't know, where do you draw the line?
All right, let's break it down into three parts. Now, I'll start off with, let's give it some legitimacy, right? Esports. So let's look at America, as the beacon of hope, the land of opportunity. League of Legends, which is one of the biggest games in the world, has an esports league called the LCS in America. And you can an average salary for an LCS player is around $350,000 a year. Now, that's no joke, right?
No. But by being paid, does that make it a sport? I don't know. These are just broad definitions where...
It can at least be considered work.
Sure.
Right. You can actually get a P1 visa for esports athletes in America. Now, that's the visa that they give to sports athletes in general, who are highly skilled sports athletes who want to go to America to compete and to earn a living. And if coming to the US to join a US athletic team, the applicant must have achieved a significant international recognition. USCIS now recognizes esports or professional video gaming as an athletic sport, and esport professionals are athletes, making them eligible to seek P1 visa.
If you're going to America as an athlete,
yes,
to do some sort of international competition,
yes,
like archery or running or stuff, you get the same visa to enter America as somebody doing esports.
Yes.
Well, it looks like the government there have already decided that esports are indeed sports.
Right. Now let's talk about earnings, in general. So like I said, the LCS is now an established esports league. However, there are certain competitions depending on the games. The International, which is an event for Dota 2, which stands for Defense of the Ancients, coming from Warcraft, a team has a total prize pool of $34 million shared amongst 18 teams. Now, depending on where you stand, you can earn in the millions just for playing a game. And to add...
Okay, so you're calling it a game. You said for playing a game. It's not a sport.
A game can be a sport. Why not?
Okay, well, you just said it. You just called it a game.
Right. Let's look more specifically in Thailand, right? We have a player called Jabs, whose real name is Anusha Jirawong. He has a life earning so far, he's still very young, $525,108 just in winnings. So that's going to tournaments, winning a prize pool. That's not considering his endorsements, the team he plays for, which probably he has a salary, the donations and the subscriptions while he's streaming online where people can watch him play. So these players are real sports athletes. Whether you like to admit esports is a sport or not, they are. In a way, they are athletes. And I'll tell you why. These men, young women, spend up to 8 hours a day, 6 to 8 hours a day, honing their skills, playing with their team, analyzing their play, watching videos, how to get better, working in a team, working in facilities, proper facilities, offices, where they go and hone their skills to become better players. Because whether you like to believe it or not, you're not good enough to be a professional player. Okay,
but I mean, I hone my skills as a presenter, as a writer, as an editor,
yes,
for 8 to 10 hours a day. Okay. That doesn't make me an athlete.
Yes, but that doesn't necessarily make you a good editor as well, right? I mean, you could spend 10 hours. No, that's not a jab at you, but what I mean is, there's a lot of people who play games for 10 hours, 12 hours.
So we understand that they're serious about it, but
yes,
but the fact that they're serious about it, the fact that they're moving their fingers around very fast,
yes,
the fact that they're nimble and quick and got amazing reflexes, doesn't automatically make them an athlete. And do you have to be an athlete to have a sport? So I'll put another one to you. Here's some video of another activity that they can conduct at the Olympics, and this was from the Tokyo Olympics.
Okay.
And they used to call it synchronized swimming, but now they call it artistic swimming. And I mean, what they're doing is very, very clever.
Right.
Is it sport or is it art? Ice skating, when they do the sort of the themed dances to pieces of music. Torval and Dean doing the bolero. Is that art or are they athletes?
If you're doing something, physical, like there is physicality involved in being a gamer, and you're getting paid for it, and you're competing with people all around the world. How can that not be considered
So does the
sport?
competition make it a sport?
Oh yeah, definitely.
Okay, so
What is sport without competition?
So the Rubik's, people doing the Rubik's Cube. Have you seen, by the way, people doing the Rubik? I don't know how long it takes you to do a Rubik's Cube. It takes me like 5 minutes. But the world record is under 7 seconds,
Right.
which is amazing. But is that a sport or is that a game?
Well, not everyone can do it. They've spent maybe tens of years becoming that good. Actually, some of the best Rubik's Cubes players are really, really young. You'd be surprised how young they are. But
Do you know what I think part of the problem is? I mean, we got a lot of comments yesterday. They were obviously slightly older people who were whinging that these are not sports.
Yes.
And I suspected there was a little bit of jealousy.
It is.
And a little bit of older versus younger, and all those younger generations, those young whippersnappers. I thought there was a bit of jealousy because they are making good money participating at these activities. I'm sort of thinking that whether you want to call it a sport or not, the fact that they've labelled these esports, the definition has changed. I mean, 20 years, 30 years ago, we didn't sort of have these video games. Now we do. How do you classify them? So we're using a term, sport, that's been around for hundreds of years and applying it to a new activity.
Yeah.
Probably in another 30 or 40 years, there's going to be something else that they're going to label sports. And the people now who play these video games say, "Oh, that's not a sport."
yeah, a lot of it's really about acceptance, isn't it? A lot of people refuse to accept esports as a proper sport because it's not as physical as rugby. It's not as as physically or mentally demanding as.
Well, it's mentally demanding.
Yeah, oh yeah, definitely.
But perhaps not as physically demanding as doing the 100-metre sprint.
Yes.
Or a marathon.
Yes.
Or archery or other things that you may consider a sport.
But then there are things like that in so many other things that you can't compare one thing to another just because they're very different. Like, for example, if you're a CEO of a company or if you're a gardener, there are very different demands for both those jobs, but they're still jobs. You can be highly skilled as a gardener and you can be highly skilled as a CEO.
Can I say that
Yes.
I'm both? I'm a
True.
CEO and a gardener.
That is actually true. Factually true. Right. So I'm thinking maybe another 10 to 15 years that esports really takes off and is globally accepted, because there are a lot of people who refuse to accept it, and it's just, I think, a matter of time. It's just people will have to eventually accept it. YouTube, for example, where we're broadcasting our shows, who at first when YouTube came out, everyone was like, YouTube has no future, it's never going to take over cable TV.
Cat videos.
Yeah, TV is where it's supposed to be. YouTube is for amateurs.
It's like also when we post stories from time to time about K-pop music,
Yeah.
and how it's like sweeping the globe at the moment, is very popular. And a lot of the same sort of people say they're not real musicians,
Yeah.
they don't play instruments. So it's the same sort of thing where things come along and stir the pot and change our traditional definitions of certain words.
Yeah.
So esports, whether you want to like the word or not, are here to stay. And the weight of the person, the age of the person, is probably nothing to do with it. I'll leave you to have the last say.
Right. All I would say is, like, don't try to hate on something you perhaps don't fully understand. I would say there is a lot of legitimacy and a lot of competition, and esports is actually a sport. It might not be as physically demanding as football or rugby or baseball, but
Or doing this show. This
Exactly.
wears me out.
Exactly. Don't judge one sport compared to another just because it's very different. However, you are entitled to all your opinions, and we would love to hear your feedback and your comments, whatever they may be. And please leave them in the comment section below.
So yeah, if you think they should be called e-games rather than e-sports, what moniker do you want to give it? So as you wrap up, I'm going to get another coffee.
Sure. Oh, is that the coffee from Coffee Culture?
This is the coffee from Coffee Culture.
All right. And you're
Asia.
And you're going to put it in your beautiful cup that is very limited to only 100 cups. Find yours on coffeeculture.asia.
I think I didn't put enough coffee in. Anyway, it does taste very good.
Right. This is why we had water in our cups the other day, because we don't know how to make coffee.
We need to get the percolator thing right.
Right. Any last comments, Tim?
No, I think that's it.
You actually wanted to talk about a quick story, didn't you?
Oh, yes. I just, this
Breaking
just popped
news.
up.
Breaking news live.
I'll read it to you. This is straight from the Thaiger.com. While it's been illegal for bars to open in Thailand and the selling or consumption of alcohol in public is forbidden, police have been looking the other way allegedly as patrons sneak beers in bars in Patong, Phuket, the famous entertainment and nightlife district in Phuket. But after over a month of this occurring under the radar, allegedly, police have begun raiding and shutting down venues that have been bypassing the provincial order that bans the sale of alcohol. You drive around Patong or Katu on any given night, there's been lots and lots of bars open. I don't decry them the opportunity to try and slip under the radar. I don't really care what means they've been using to get their bars open. I mean, everybody's trying to make a living at the moment, but it looks like the police are cracking down.
Right.
It's a bit of breaking news.
And that's all we have for today. I'd like to thank Tim for joining me.
Thank you.
Jason behind the camera and Golf behind the scenes. We hope you've enjoyed today's episode. Have a great Thursday and see you tomorrow on Friday.